Welcome, everybody. We will be getting started in right around 2 minutes. We're just waiting for people to join, but thank you so much for joining today and spending the next 45 to 60 minutes with us. Really appreciate it. Well, welcome again, everyone who's joined us. We are going to get started with the February 2022 PIHRA member orientation. Some of you may be members already, you just became members, maybe longtime members, or thinking about becoming a member, and you're welcome here. The next 45 to 60 minutes, I usually fill up the 60 minutes, but it's really about us engaging with you, interacting with you, and you getting the most out of this time. My name is Lily Arguello. I'm the Director of Membership, and I'm committed to connecting you with your professional development, networking goals. And so I really want to hear what each of you want to get out of today. And we're going to get there in a second. A little bit of housekeeping before then. Please feel free to, this is a webinar format. I think in the future we will go to a more Zoom meeting format. So the way to interact is through the chat box or the Q&A box. You see Elisette Sapian here. She is my right hand, and she's going to be engaging with you on the chat box as well. So please let us know if you have any questions using those channels. We are recording this webinar, and we have recordings of previous member orientations, and following probably within an hour after we complete the webinar, we're going to follow up with you with these slides and with a link to where you can find previously recorded webinars on our YouTube channel. And this recording will likely be up at the beginning of next week. If there's any questions, again, please put them in the chat box or the Q&A box. And here we go. Let's talk about what we're going to do for the next 60 minutes together. So we're in the welcome phase. I'm also going to give you a general update. Since the pandemic, I've been trying to update everybody on where we're at. And so we're still kind of post-pandemic. So I will do a little of that. Then we're going to take a poll. Like I said, definitely want you to walk away from these 45 to 60 minutes with the information that you need to be successful with your PIHRA membership, or the information you need to decide, I'm going to join. Hey, I'm not going to join. Whatever you decide, I want you to find a community out there. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. It's so important for us to have a professional and personal community that supports us. And so whether it's PIHRA or another, like a Chamber of Commerce or another HR association, I just want you to find a community that you're comfortable with. I'm comfortable with PIHRA, and I'm going to tell you about why as we go through this. So we'll do the poll. Then I'm going to introduce you, although you see him up here with me, our special guest today, Barry Cohn. He's with PIHRA Woodland Hills, and he's going to introduce himself and talk about PIHRA and how that's impacted his career, his development as a HR leader and as an entrepreneur. Then we'll get to kind of the meat, and Barry's going to be helping us throughout that, engaging to talk about the PIHRA mission, perhaps the benefits, learning and networking at PIHRA, the PIHRA chapters, which are, you know, what really differentiates us, and our communities. And then we'll wrap up just to make sure, just to make sure we've answered all the questions and you have all that you need. All right, does that sound like a plan, everybody? I see something in the chat. I'm going to just look. Yes. Oh, yeah. And let's start networking. That's one of the golden things about PIHRA, is that we have such a wonderful and warm HR community. We have 17 chapters, 4 communities. We've been at this for over 75 years. What differentiates PIHRA is that community. So send us your LinkedIn. I think Lisa put my LinkedIn. We'll talk about LinkedIn a little bit if you like, but it's a great way for us to stay connected and start networking virtually until we can get to more in-person meetings. So really appreciate that. All right, so here's a general update, if I can get to the next slide. So March 2020, I think a lot of organizations shut down, PIHRA included. We had to reconceptualize how we provided networking opportunities, how we provided professional development. We had some online tools that are still very, very valid, but a lot of what we did along with our partners was kind of evaluate how do we continue to operate in a way that sets us apart with our members, but also keeps us all safe. So our primary goal, and we were committed to making sure that our community was safe and had the resources they needed. So we went totally virtual during that time. We had our chapters got Zoom accounts, so they started doing some Zoom networking. We started increasing the number of webinars. Our conference went virtual. So that's where we were. Now we started doing some in-person events back in, I believe it was June 2021. Our chapters gradually started doing in-person socials. So we started with evening socials in outdoor venues, and PIHRA started meeting with our volunteers in the October, December timeframe, and again, using masks, doing whatever the World Health Association, the CDC, and our local electeds and government agencies told us to do to keep us safe. So where are we now? Now we decided we want to continue to give our HR community the information on HR trends, employment law, all those things virtually. So all webinars are free in 2022. And right now we have 2 to 3 webinars each month. I'm really looking forward to a lot of employment law. We're really well known for, I think our PIHRA legal update is 60 years old or 30 years old. I think it's 60 years old. And so people come from throughout the United States to consume the content that the attorneys that we work with provide at our, now we're calling it the California Employment Law Update. So on February 15th, PIHRA, this is an example of a complimentary webinar for members. PIHRA Inland Valley is doing another legal update with an attorney, Lonnie Giamella from Fisher Phillips. He is fantastic, very sought after. It's free for members. So that's just an example of what we have going on. We also are going back to in-person professional development, and some examples of the chapters who are doing in-person are on February 16th, PIHRA Coachella Valley is doing an in-person breakfast, and it's the top 10 must-dos to kickstart your year, all for HR. Now, the in-person events are at a cost because we have to pay. There's usually a meal component, there is the venue that we have to pay, and there is professional development. And by the way, all the webinars, all the professional development, you can receive recertification credit to recertify through HRCI and SHRM And so, we are providing all that we can given the environment that we are in. And we know that being in HR for the last 2 years has not been easy. So we want to give you the resources, the information, the frameworks, and the tools, and the support system that you need to continue to thrive. So if you're interested in any of these webinars or finding out about what we're doing, please go to the PIHRA calendar. And I'm going to be discussing some details around that as we go. But that's the update for now. I do see some things in the chat. Anything I need to look at, Elisa?
No, everyone's sharing their LinkedIn profiles, which is great.
Good. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to, this afternoon, I will go back and make sure that we're all connected on LinkedIn. So as I mentioned, this is the time where we're going to do a poll. And at least that's going to help me with the poll. We want to know, what are you seeking today? Because I can go on and on about PIHRA. So what I'm going to do is ask you that you all answer the question. And I'm going to try to focus in. So I may be repeating topics that help respond to your highest needs during the next 60 minutes. So I don't see anyone answering yet. So there's right around 12 attendees. So please, I want to see at least 12 of you providing, what did you come to this orientation for? What do you want more information about networking opportunities, about the benefits that we offer through Mineral, it's formerly Think HR. I see someone interested in HR certification. So let's give it, there might be 3 or 4 or 5 of you that haven't answered. So I'm going to give you a couple more seconds. Let's give it maybe 20 more seconds, Elisa. If you want to select more than one answer, just put it in the chat. So we could do it that way as well. So if you selected your primary takeaway, but you have a secondary or something else, believe me, I'm going to cover everything, but just put it in the chat so I can see that. So networking, great, is pretty much number one, and the PIHRA benefits through Mineral. And then I see seminars, conferences, PIHRA Insure, HR Cert, and seminars. Okay, do you want to stop the poll and share the responses? And let's make sure we capture that. All right, so this is what you guys are telling me. Lots of networking. Want to focus on the benefits. What is PIHRA and SHRM? How are they related? That's what I think I'm getting. Someone said others, so put it in the chat. We'll talk about conferences, and I'll talk a little bit about certification as well. I recently became certified, so absolutely. And by the way, please know, and I'm going to stop sharing. If we could just grab this, at least that. If you want to have a more in-depth conversation that we can have, since there's 15 of us on the webinar today, I am open to having a 30-minute to 60-minute conversation with you, because a lot of the times everyone's so unique. So I'd really like to tailor my conversations given what your goals are, what your experience is. So that's a great example is HR certification. HR certification is so different for everybody, but I will talk about all that. So and then at the chat, more of them, let's see. You want to hear about the chapters? Yes, definitely talk about the chapters. And if you had if you wanted to select more than one in the poll, just put it in the chat. So I did see that someone wanted to talk about chapters, and that's fine. We'll continue. So I want to introduce myself and my team a little bit more, and then I'm going to have Barry unmute himself and also introduce himself. So like I said, my name is Lily Arguello. I am the director of membership. I joined PIHRA in 2014, and I was a PIHRA member before I ever dreamed of being on staff. I belong to PIHRA Long Beach, and I loved PIHRA Long Beach. I knew about SHRM way before, because I worked for, I did organizational development consulting. That was my career. And I wanted to transition into internal organizational development in HR. So, you know, I had some shifts, but during that time, I joined PIHRA Long Beach, and they were so welcoming. I remember they had me introduce myself at my first meeting to everybody, and they invited me to volunteer. And I will never forget that group of people. So when we're going to talk about the PIHRA chapters, Barry's going to also talk about his experience with the chapters. It's just wonderful. So my background is organizational development, strategic planning, organizational assessments, management training. So when I left that field, I was looking around, and I'm very mission driven. And that's why I love PIHRA, because when I left consulting, I identified that what I'm excited about is helping organizations and individuals be successful. And so as I was looking around at different possibilities, I was wanting to start a family. So that was the other reason I couldn't really work that 70, 80-hour week that consultants usually work. And I just so happened to end up in the nonprofit area. And I'm going to introduce you to our CEO, Rafael Rivera, found me through LinkedIn. And at the time I was working for the Girl Scouts of Greater Los Angeles. And I was expanding the leadership program for young women in underserved areas, mostly lower income areas. And so PIHRA was a great marriage of my work in the membership and nonprofit world with my organizational development consulting world, working in partnership with HR. So I love working with PIHRA. I love my team. I love helping our members get the most out of their membership, getting the professional development they need. And so I also love my partner in crime, which I don't know why I say that, but Elisa Sapian is my partner here on the membership team. She's the first person you're going to talk to. And so I'm going to mute myself while she introduces herself.
Thanks, Lily. Her and I are partners in crime here at PIHRA. So we do work closely together. I'm the membership coordinator here at PIHRA. And I've been with PIHRA for almost, I think I'm going on 6 years this year. And like Lily mentioned, I am the first person that you probably speak to if you dial the main number. So I talked to a lot of you, and it's great to meet you, to give you information about PIHRA and service to you as our members in our community. So Lily and I are very accessible. If you ever want to reach us, feel free to email us, give us a phone call, and reach out to us. I'm going to be monitoring the chat for the rest of the webinar and chiming in here and there when there's a question so that Lily can address it. So thank you all for joining us, and I'll be here to help Lily and Barry host this webinar.
Yes, and so as Elisette said, we are pretty accessible. I'm really good with email. My expectation of my team is that we respond within 24 hours. So if we don't respond to your email or your call, again, my favorite is email. It's because it slipped through the cracks or we didn't receive it for some reason. So just email us back. And but we're really good at that. Also, the networking has begun. So while I'm going to connect with you after this, I want you guys to connect with each other via chat. So feel free to connect with each other, because this is the forum to start networking. Everything we do is about building our network. And with that said, I want to introduce you to Matt Palitz, who's also on this slide. He's a volunteer leader. We are primarily volunteer-led. That has been the case since 1944, when a group of personnel managers came together in downtown Los Angeles, and they wanted to talk about where's the HR profession going. Back then it was industrial relations or personnel. And they talked about, how do we start mentoring people to go into this career? What are the certifications they need? What are the skills that they need to be successful? And so it's all about networking. It's all about our volunteers. He is one of the most accessible, friendliest men that I've met. And so he's part of our team. He goes to the board. He's at the board level, not the chapter level, but the association board level, and really takes your concerns, your questions to that group so that it could be addressed in our strategic planning and governance process. So I don't think anyone talked about volunteering or asked about volunteering, but that is such a great way to network, and not just network. For me, my saying is, you know how there's a saying that says it's all about who you know. Well, I turn that around and say it's not just about who you know, but it's about who knows you. And with that, I'm going to introduce Barry to you. So Barry, do you want to unmute and tell us a little bit about yourself and your work with PIHRA and your own work?
Happy to unmute, and nice to talk to everybody and see everybody today, or at least see you through the chat. So my name is Barry Cohn. I'm the CEO and Chief HR guy at JorgensenHR. But originally, I was in the employee benefit business, which Matt Pallets is in with Lofton, and there's somebody on the chat today with Gallagher. Actually, I started 25 years in corporate banking, but then my wife gave me an offer I couldn't refuse. We blended our families, 5 kids. They were 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. And she said, why don't you come work for me? We can grow our agency. So we did that. And a year and a half ago, we actually sold our health insurance agency with our 350 clients. But about 15 years ago, we started moving more into HR. Our clients were asking us HR questions. We were doing compliance with them, and I decided to join PIHRA at that time. And I wanted to join PIHRA for one main reason, which was educational. I wanted to learn as much as I could about HR. I got emails from many law firms, employment law firms, and what have you. And I joined Woodland Hills, met a lot of great people. The way that those meetings went was as a breakfast meeting. And we kind of network for about half an hour or 40 minutes, and then we have breakfast, and then we always have a speaker. And the speakers were great. And the main reason I went to these were the speakers. And one of the speakers is Karen Gabler from Like Gabler, who sometimes is involved in the employment law updates. Not only is she my employment attorney, but I also do work for her, because Jorgensen HR does work for 17 different employment attorneys over 10 different law firms. But so the reason I got involved was to learn, to educate, to get to know things. And we had set up a separate company to do HR. And then 3 years ago, we bought Jorgensen HR. And Jorgensen HR is an HR consulting firm. We do work with companies. As I just mentioned, a lot of our work comes through labor law firms or labor attorneys. And I went and joined PIHRA board because now I'm really in HR. And I wanted to get more involved. And what's interesting about it is that I think that PIHRA has impacted my HR career in that I learned so much over a 10-year period. When you look at, 100 different webinars, seminars you go to, and you meet some good people, and then you meet some good HR people. And I would tell you that PIHRA in general, and I'm sure Lily could probably give you a better understanding. I'm coming in staticky, huh? Okay, I'm gonna change to my headphones, okay?
I'll unmute with that, but Barry, I apologize to interrupt you, but I was hearing static and so was Ellie said, so we wanted to make sure that everyone could hear you. Please chime in as we go on. So I'm gonna continue, but Barry is awesome. I've known of Barry and Jorgensen HR from the beginning of my career, actually. So he's a great resource. I met him and I got to know him a little bit better at a real HR event, which we'll talk about. We had it at a winery during Halloween, and it was talking about HR horror stories. And Barry, I just remember you had those horror stories because you also do HR investigations, right?
Yeah, actually, right now we're doing 7 workplace investigations, and we just got another phone call today from another law firm. But I tell you one thing, it's kind of funny. The #1 story that night, and I didn't think it was mine, but it was a woman, and she worked for Sony Pictures. Lily, you may remember this. She worked for Sony Pictures in HR, And some of the producers were off lot, and she needed to call a production assistant to say, hey, you need to come into Culver City. We need to do an annual review. And she called a woman who was in the Hollywood Hills at the producer's house. And the woman said, I'm happy to come to Culver City. Should I put my clothes on? And I think the whole room kind of went, what? And Pat said, yeah, she said she wanted us to put her clothes on. And so immediately Pat went to her boss. They called the lady back. Apparently this producer for 3 years wanted her to work naked. He never touched her, never approached her, never did anything, you know, inappropriate, except for the fact that she wasn't wearing clothes. She ended up with a 7-figure settlement. So somewhere over $1 million, Sony said, here's money, go away.
Yeah, so this is being recorded.
Yeah, well, that was one of the horror stories. But it was
that was one of the horror stories, and so I'll never forget Barry. But you know, this is what brings HR together. This is where you can come and have those conversations, hopefully not recorded, you know, people can relate. I mean, we could all relate. You know, there was stories about terminations and etc. So this is where you're going to build that network. We have volunteers that call the network they built at PIHRA their Fab Five, their HR Fab Five. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, but I want to quickly go through an overview about the PIHRA-SHRM relationship. So this is where I get into that. So I'm not going to read, this is our mission. I'm not going to read it to you. I'm passionate about our mission. I'm passionate about working with HR. You know, I calculated, we had at one point before the pandemic, we had over 4,500 members. And I calculated that membership impacted over 2.5 individuals in Southern California. So it's really important that HR gets the tools and what they need, and the rest, by the way, and the self-care that they need, because you impact so many people. Here is where I like to talk a little bit more about when we were established. So 1944, we were established. And this is where I like to say that we were established before SHRM, because I believe SHRM was established in 1948, somewhere in the Midwest. And they obviously grew and evolved to be much larger than PIHRA. But we are the largest SHRM affiliate in the country, because I see the reports. I believe we're the largest affiliate in the world. So we are what they call a SHRM mega chapter. We are in good standing. Right around 50 to 51% of our membership is a dual member. And what that means is that they're both a PIHRA member and a SHRM member. I personally feel that the SHRM and the PIHRA membership go really well together. They complement each other. You agree, Barry?
100%.
Yeah, tell me, because I have why I think it goes well, but I'd love to hear from you on that.
Well, I think it's great because SHRM has a lot of great resources, a lot of great templates, a lot of great information. If there's a question I need answered besides mineral, because I have my own mineral membership, but I go to SHRM, and it's great. But one thing I was going to say, Lily, and maybe you can answer this question for me, is that, you know, members join PIHRA for various reasons. There are vendors like payroll companies, health insurance agencies, background investigation, whatever. There's HR consultants, and there's people that are actually HR practitioners. And my question to Lily is, do you know what percentage of the membership are HR practitioners versus other types of people?
I'm going to get to that.
Oh,
I'm going to get, I have a slide on that, so you can actually,
the
while
reason,
I'm speaking to it, you can see it.
The reason I'm asking is that woman that told that story that night, I ended up hiring her as an HR consultant. And I actually, my last 5 HR consultants came through PIHRA.
Yep.
So just to give
you,
I'll
we'll talk
go
about
back on mute.
Thank you. We'll talk about that. So really quickly, just I talked about volunteer leadership. I want to introduce you to Tara Fournier. She's a SPHR SHRM SEP Vice President at Visio. You might recognize the name Visio. She is our president of the board. So there are various ways to volunteer. You could volunteer at the chapter level. That's usually where people start, or they volunteer at the conference. By the way, we are having a conference this year. I think I have a slide here that will we'll talk about that. So you could volunteer at the conference. We have an in-person volunteer opportunity, and we have a virtual volunteer opportunity. Volunteers get first rights because we have right now over 200 volunteers at the chapter and association level. We cannot do this without you. They are the heart. Since we're in Valentine's Day week, they're at the heart of our association. So Tara is awesome. She actually worked at SHRM. So we have a lot of intersection with SHRM and very accessible if you'd like to find out more about her. She's on LinkedIn. You can just search her. Rafael Rivera, I promised I was going to introduce you to him. He found me on LinkedIn. If you don't have a real good LinkedIn profile, I suggest you get one and have a professional photo on there and really talk yourself up, because I think that's the future. People are going to start recruiting through LinkedIn a lot now, and through, like Barry said, meeting you at PIHRA events. But I really credit Rafael for bringing in an excellent staff. So we have the largest staff of any SHRM affiliate. We have right now, I think it's 6, 7. We had grown pre-pandemic to up to 10 staff, but we're going to continue to go back to that level. And really credit him for taking our professional development, our seminars and conferences to the next level. So we used to have the PIHRA annual conference. Now it's a 3-day fun-filled 80 sessions California HR conference. People come from all over the United States and even from Mexico and Canada and even Australia to our conference. I'm so excited about being in person again this year. But if you think that this went well, let him know. And if you want to give him feedback on me, you can tell him he's pretty honest. We have a great relationship. We really care about each other. We care about being better. And so, Rafael is just a great leader. I can't talk to him enough. This is the slide, Barry, where I talked a little bit about, I think I'll get to your question. So as of late 2021, we had 4,342 members. So the demographic split in terms of HR practitioner, et cetera, is on this slide. I know this is not a great slide. I need to get my marketing team to help me with this, but right around 42% of our membership is at the HR manager, HR business partner, generalist level. And then on top of that, we have 26% of our membership is at the HR director level and above. So if you're going to do some simple math, you add that, so right around 60, almost 70% of our membership is the HR practitioner. I don't have that broken out necessarily because I think some consultants might be internal HR right now, and then they go, that's the beauty about being an HR practitioner, that you can, something happens, and I think you all should be prepared for if something happens that you think very entrepreneurially. So some of those folks may cross over to being an HR consultant. But in my data, right around 6% consider themselves consultants, or they're the primary consultant for their firm. So Barry, I hope that answers that question. Today, well, as of late 2021, 5% of our membership base are what I call service providers. So those are the insurance brokers, like pure, they see themselves as purely insurance brokers, not necessarily HR consultants. Also in that is financial advisors, retirement advisors, staffing, business development folks on the staffing side. So those are those natural partners to HR. I don't want you to be fearful of them because I know that there's some feeling. Most of our core natural partners that are PIHRA members, they're very focused on relationship building. I come from the philosophy that you do business with people that you like, so they're going to get to know you. We really frown upon an aggressive sales approach. So, and what I also like about them is they are paid to be connectors. So if you're interested in what that next great HR opportunity is for you, they're the people that know about the HR director positions and the generalist positions and those sorts of things. So when you go to a PIHRA Woodland Hills meeting or a PIHRA South Bay meeting or a PIHRA Long Beach meeting, a lot of the times when I show up to those meetings, it's the service providers that say, hey, I know about this job in downtown LA for HR director. If anyone's interested, I can give you the contact. So really great people to know. The top 4 industries represented by our members are consulting, healthcare, education, and manufacturing. And someone asked about HR certification. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but 37% of our members are HR certified. You'll find there's different pockets within the HR, and I'm going to show you a map. So I'm going to show you this map. There's certain pockets within our PIHRA community. So this is our footprint. Some of the chapters have a richer background in HR certification. And that's because the leaders, the volunteer leaders, are very connected with they're either teaching HR certification prep, or they have several certifications. So 2 of the examples that pop up for me is PIHRA South Bay. They have a great legacy of PIHRA leadership. I think 4 folks that are currently on their roster have been PIHRA presidents of the association. And I think that Mary Propster comes to mind. She's been very involved in the PIHRA South Bay chapter for a long time. She's an HR certification instructor, and so is Karen Whitaker, formerly Nash, also an instructor. The other group that pops out to me is PIHRA Pasadena. Again, because they have the volunteer leadership, they have that background in HR certification, etc. HR certification, really quickly, is a very unique experience. I think that there's a lot of mysticism of like, where do I begin? What certification is right for me? So that is a very unique process to every individual. And so when we follow up with the email, I'm going to provide you with a link to our HR certification page. I think right now we have an APHR certification class up. And we're working on putting the SHRM, SCP, and CP, and the HRC, PHR and SPHR prep courses up soon. But very unique process. It can be daunting. If you have more questions for me, let me know. I went through the studying process, and I'm not a great test taker, so I had to really focus on that because I did not want to fail that test. And it wasn't easy. It basically, it has the same pass rate, more or less, as the California bar exam. So it is no joke, by the way. Barry, are you certified? Or have you ever gone through that process?
It's interesting. I am not certified. Of my 10 consultants, the 3 younger ones, meaning people under 50, are all certified. I have because of the way the organization started, we have about 4 people that are over 60, and they have 40 years experience, and they never got certified. But all my new HR people that I hire, I want them to get certified.
Yeah, great experience. I did the SHRM SCP because I have the organizational development HR strategy background, and I have an MBA, so it suited me. But the SHRM learning system, I love it. I know everyone has a different opinion about it, but I kept my materials as reference materials because every now and then I'll do some like an org structure audit or something like that. But excellent materials. So some of you had questions about our chapters. We have 17 chapters. So if any of you want to kind of put in the chat what chapter you're interested in, let us know so that I can focus on that. Barry is from PIHRA Woodland Hills. So that's in the San Fernando Valley area. That's kind of a mid-sized chapter, great group, great professional development. And they usually, under normal circumstances, meet at the Woodland Hills Country Club. Isn't that correct, Barry?
Yeah, we used to meet monthly at the Woodland Hills Country Club. And that was great. But I will say this, there's an East Valley chapter in Burbank, and they meet monthly too before COVID. And they're just great people. One thing I learned is that everybody's welcoming in the chapters that I've guested at. In our chapter, they're welcoming, they want to help each other, but the idea is for us to get better at what we do. and no one looks at people as competitors, you know. And on our board, we have some director of HR people and some 4 or 5 companies that are 100 to 500, 1,000 people. And we're always helping each other. It's not a matter of competing, which is great. But I will tell you this, since we're still kind of in COVID, there's a weekly email that goes out, and there's tons of webinars. And if you're interested in learning and getting more information, you just attend some of those webinars, because there's just a hell of a lot of them. Great.
Great. And you could meet other people as well. You know, what
True.
I remember from my consulting days is that being an internal HR person can be lonely and a little isolating. You're dealing with a lot of difficult and sensitive information. And so sometimes it's not comfortable to ask for help or ask for advice internal to your organization. So it's so important that you create relationships and create community outside of your internal organizations. And SHRM pushes this as well. And so this is the place where you're gonna, you know, this is the largest local community of HR practitioners in the country. So I want to emphasize that going to the webinars right now because of COVID, trying to find some in-person meetings. I agree with you, Burbank, Glendale, they've changed venues. Usually they meet for lunch. They are going to start meeting in person soon. Great group. Our largest PIHRA chapter is South Bay. Under normal circumstances, you can go to an event and meet 60 to 100 people at those events in South Orange County. Our second largest chapter is PIHRA Los Angeles. They've been having some socials. I'm not quite sure their plans about an in-person quarterly meeting. I know that we're going to go to less meetings. It used to be monthly, but they used to meet at the City Club. I think it's they have less people there because I think the parking and just getting into downtown and in and out of downtown is a challenge. Our third largest is North OC. I'm actually working with them to do a real HR event that is the integration between corporate culture and DEI and B. Really excited about that. They usually meet out of Anaheim Hills. We go as far north as Antelope Valley, Santa Clarita, Ventura County meets out of Camarillo. As far east as Coachella Valley, that group meets out of, I think it's Desert Hot Springs, but they might have a new venue. And as far south, we even have a community in San Diego. So a great group. We have 4 communities. One of them is the San Diego community. The other one is the PIHRA Foundation. And Barry, you're associated with the foundation. And what I'd like to talk about here is they have their own board, so another opportunity for you to volunteer here. They're a separate 501c3, and they were established, I believe, in the 80s to fundraise and to do outreach. Because of COVID, I think it stopped, but they had a annual silent auction, which I'm hoping might start again this year, to fundraise for their scholarships. So they have 2 scholarship windows, one in the fall, one in the spring. And those are for those folks. So if you're not interested, it's open to anybody. You don't have to be a PIHRA member, by the way, right, Barry? I don't know if you have more information about.
Yeah, I don't have more information, but I would just say that it's an outreach program to help people interested in HR and also people moving forward in HR. And, you know, there are some college chapters that are affiliated with PIHRA, like Cal Lutheran, Cal State Northridge, I think College of the Canyons in Santa Clarita. And a lot of times, you know, we interact with them, but the foundation raises money at the events. Usually, you know, we can't really call them raffles anymore, but you know, people put money in and they get tickets and they get wine bottles or Dodger tickets or whatever in my chapter. But the point is that that money goes into the foundation, and then the foundation basically funds scholarships. And obviously when you're not meeting in person, that's a little more difficult.
Right. They also did, and I did see the question about the difference between communities and chapters, and that's pretty interesting. Let me get there. I'm going to get there in a second. But back to the PIHRA Foundation, they as part of their outreach work would go into high schools and colleges as well at one point, and they developed these booklets called "You and Your First Job," and they would take delegations to high schools to do mock interviews, and so. The difference between chapters and communities, I mean, there's some differences with respect to kind of how they function with respect to our bylaws. But in general, our chapters have ongoing professional development. So as we've been mentioning in the past, they would meet monthly, they have their own board, they're quite autonomous, but yet consistent with servicing the members in their area and providing professional development on a consistent, ongoing basis. Our communities have their own boards, but they may not meet in the same way as our chapters. So the PIHRA Foundation, they have their own board. They do a silent auction. They do scholarships. So that's what differentiates them. We have another community called Club PIHRA. I call them the fun side. They'll, in the past, they've done quarterly events, but they have a different mission. Their mission is to really tailor their offering to the HR practitioner who is focused on employee recognition, the Christmas party, the summer picnic, and things like that. So they'll bring people together. They've been, since the pandemic, a little, unfortunately, inactive because their connection with our community is very experiential. So for example, they'll go to Six Flags Magic Mountain, they'll have a meal, there's some networking, they have a vendor fair because they want to connect folks with different venues, event solution folks and things like that. But they've also do professional development during these events. So you would be able to earn recertification credit. And then after the event's over, usually you can go into Six Flags Magic Mountain. And so I've always wanted to do this. I've never had time because it's pretty affordable. I mean, all that for a member is around $35, $40 back when that was happening. So hopefully that describes the difference between our chapters and communities. I'm gonna, our San Diego community is kind of like a hybrid between a chapter and a community. They're pretty new. And so we call them a community because they don't have as consistent of a schedule in terms of meeting and professional development. The community I'm really proud of is PIHRA Emerging Leaders. I helped establish this community in 2015, and we actually won the SHRM Pinnacle Award for our work in this area. Since then, the now they're called the Emerging Leaders because they want to include everybody. They want to be more inclusive, and the young professionals name just didn't capture that, but they kind of took over and they have their own board. They meet quarterly, at least pre-pandemic. I think they're trying to reestablish themselves now. They work with our student chapters and they do some virtual and in-person socials. So if you want to reach out to them, they're on Twitter. They have a PIHRA Emerging Leaders group on LinkedIn. So I really hope that that helps describe who our chapters are and the difference between the communities. Okay, if I left anything out, let me know, or if there's something that wasn't clear. So wanted to talk to you about the benefits. Just there's 3 benefits that I hear from our members that really have helped them. And we talked about it, this networking piece. This is where you're going to build what I call your HR board of advisors, your HR Fab 5. For example, if you are perhaps first 5-10 years in HR and you are having to deal with your first sexual harassment investigation, you will probably want to find someone in your PIHRA network that you can call and say, I'm going through this. You've gone through this before. What did you do well? What would you do differently? What would you advise me to do in this process? Barry might be a great person to call if you're going through the investigatory process. So please, I can't emphasize enough. Also, volunteering helps you gain additional visibility. I am not a fan of going to a meeting and introducing yourself and getting a business card. Really, in today's environment, that's not enough for people to get to know you and for you to build that relationship. I think it's all about volunteering. You're honing your leadership skills. and your people are getting to know you, and I'll talk about that in a moment. This is where you're going to get the professional development. This is the most affordable and accessible place that you're going to get the professional development. We've talked about the webinars that we have coming up. They're free. They're on demand. So they'll send you a recording. If you had to tune out because you had an emergency or you had a meeting or your boss called you to do something else, you could go back to it via recording. I like to do them live because then I can interact in the chat. So I could ask a clarifying question, or I could see what other people are responding to, because our community is so rich that they might be going through what the presenter is talking about and talk about their experience on the webinar as well. And I think what the online tools that are just a huge value. So the PIHRA membership is $150 a year. The PIHRA Workplace, just the telephone-based consulting service, which we call PIHRA Live, and the Employee Handbook Builder, if you were to buy that alone, it's probably $2,000. You get that with your PIHRA membership. So on top of that, it is, so the difference between SHRM and what Barry was talking about is that we cannot compete with SHRM in terms of their website. Everything is so clean, so easy. They have a huge team of people writing emails and newsletters, and so we can't keep up with that, because especially with the pandemic, the regulations were changing. OSHA ETSs were so confusing. We don't have that capacity to publish material on that, but SHRM does. So while SHRM has very similar things, online tools like an HR job description builder and things like that, they're really accessible. We have that too. It's a separate partner, so it's through Mineral. And so I just want you to know that if you're having challenges accessing this platform, please, please, please don't hesitate to email me or Elisette. We have back-end access, so we'll be able to get you on there and troubleshoot anything for you, so you get that access. It's a great service. All right, if there's any more questions about PIHRA benefits and online tools, please let us know in the chat, and then we could talk about it afterwards if you're having any challenges there. This is talking a little bit more about the PIHRA Workplace. There's a compliance center. Not only are there webinars, but there's hundreds of legal summaries by state. There's an employee handbook builder with all 50 states. Excuse me. There's some noise in the background, I apologize. So the Employee Handbook Builder, another $500 offering, and you can make employee handbooks for each state that your business operates in. And then the PIHRA Live, all you got to do is call the number. If you're a PIHRA member, they'll ask you for your name, last name, sometimes your email address, sometimes your company name. They should be able to find you. If they don't, let us know as soon as you can. Volunteering, I talked about this. I can't overemphasize volunteering and taking a leadership position. My mentors always suggested that I not just go to a meeting and say hello to people, but take that next, take a leadership role, even if it's just being on a committee and helping out with one event. It really helps you get to know people, hone your planning skills, time management skills, skills to delegate. So this is a real low risk place for you to do that. And those skills are so transferable to the workplace and you becoming a leader at work as well. And I know my bosses always looked at, wow, she's volunteering and taking a leadership role. I was a vice president of the women's club in my area for many years. I met Raphael through a group, the National Association of Women MBAs is the way I got connected with Raphael, my current boss. So can't emphasize that enough. Some of you had questions about, and I'm speeding up because I knew I'd take up the whole time. Like I said, PIHRA is a place where you're going to get the most affordable and accessible professional development. Usually, like I said, for members, our webinars are free. In-person meetings range between, prices have gone up a little bit, unfortunately, anywhere between $35 and $50 for non-members. So you do get a price break there. We have they're not monthly anymore. I guess I need to change that, but I think we're going to go back to maybe more quarterly chapter meetings this year. And then we'll see where things take us. Because of traffic, I think we've always had to deal with, do we want to do monthly meetings or do we have the same attendance? So it'll be a good mix now. PIHRA conferences, I'm going to talk about the California HR conference that's coming up in May. Our California employment law update, I've talked about it. That's one of the things that really sets us apart from other HR communities. We have specialty programs as well that are coming up. So just go to the calendar. Members always get a discount. At least a minimum of $15 off any of our professional development. And there's member rates for the California HR conference and our seminars as well. This is a conference coming up. I got to visit the Anaheim Convention Center. We're so excited to be in person this year. We're expecting right around 1,500 attendees. We're going to have the space that we need to be socially distanced. We're going to follow all the regulations that are out there. Although I know, like the mask mandate is going to be more pulled from a lot of different areas. In LA County, it may not be right away, but I think in most areas it will be. We have, I think it's over 80 learning sessions over 3 days, over May 9th and 11th. We have receptions, we have over 100 exhibitors. I mean, this is just gonna be a wonderful place. For any of you who are new, we're hoping to buddy you up with a longtime attendee or a volunteer leader, just so you don't feel like you don't have anyone to talk to or to ask questions about. So we have virtual chats. I'm going to share some of these with you. These are usually free for members and minimal cost for non-members. We also have a learning management system, which a lot of our learning modules are on demand. And here's just a listing of what we have going on right now. So I think it's today, PIHRA South Bay, I think it's starting at 4 o'clock. They're having a free chat. And they're a great group. I think I talked about them earlier in this session. Just great networking. They have open positions that they talk about. If you're looking for a HR position, or if you're looking for HR candidates, they have a place during the chat where you can exchange that information. I talked about the PIHRA Inland Valley webinar. So we have a couple of in-person events coming up. I want you to set a goal for yourself, everyone who's with me still, that you're going to go to at least one webinar or in-person event in the next 3 months. You have to set a goal for yourself, because if you don't do it, if you're like me, I will put it off because I have a little bit of anxiety about doing stuff, especially in person. So please set a goal for yourself to attend one of these. We have some socials that are going to start popping up on our a calendar as well. I know PIHRA South Bay is doing an in-person social in March. So please set a goal for yourself to do that. So I talked about networking. I talked about membership benefits and tools. I talked about the chapters, HR certification, and conferences and seminars. Feel free to reach out to me if you want a more private conversation so we can get some of those details, or if I didn't kind of capture, what you needed, it's my pleasure to talk to you about it. Connect with us online. It's all virtual nowadays, even though we had that before. I think our LinkedIn, for example, our LinkedIn group and company page, we have over 12,000 followers there. So please join us on any of these channels. And I don't know if there's any other questions, or Barry, if you want to kind of say some parting words.
Well, my parting words would be meet people at events, interact with people, and you end up developing friends for life for a long time. I have people that I know that I'm on the board. I wasn't on the board originally until a couple of years ago, but I've known these people for 10 years, 5 years, 8 years, and they're always helpful. They're always friendly, and it always helps us get better at what we do.
Yes, that's right. And if you are interested in HR certification, one of the things I want to recommend is that you go to these meetings and talk to people who are certified, because everyone has a different experience. It's a very unique journey. So you can talk to me, set up an appointment with me, talk to other folks who are certified. They may have different opinions on which certification is good. Conversation between HRCI, the SHRM certification, all that good stuff. We're here for it. We want you to get everything you need from PIHRA. If you don't join PIHRA, however, I want you to join some community. This has been a lonely 2 years. We're all working remotely here with PIHRA, and I know that I need to start getting out more, just for my mental health and for my career as well, because we're always building ourselves up. And with that, I'm here for you. Please reach out to me, Elisette. I know Barry shared his email. Reach out to us. And I'm going to follow up in probably an hour or so with these slides and with some links that might be helpful. And with that, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time, and hopefully connect with you soon. Take care. Thanks, Barry.
My pleasure.